Imagine Florence, early 15th century. The sun is setting, painting the sky above the Duomo in shades of peach and gold. Crowds of citizens hurry about their business, but one man, the architect Filippo Brunelleschi, stands frozen like a statue in the middle of Piazza della Signoria. He isn't just looking at the baptistery of San Giovanni. He sees it. Not like everyone else. In his hands, he holds a wooden panel on which he has depicted this magnificent building, but with a strange twist. It has a tiny hole drilled through it. Brunelleschi puts his eye to the hole, holding a mirror in front of him. And in that moment, in this humble demonstration, something incredible happened. He didn't just draw a building. For the first time in history, he scientifically demonstrated linear perspective. He proved that a three-dimensional world could be accurately rendered on a two-dimensional surface, creating the illusion of depth. Before him, artists painted flat. But suddenly, bam, we had volume, space, a whole new reality on canvas. People of his time must have thought, what in the world? How did he do that? It was as if someone had suddenly shown them that the world around them wasn't just a collection of colored splotches, but an ordered system with hidden rules. It's precisely these moments of insight that change our understanding of the world. And if you enjoy how we break down the most complex concepts, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps us continue these fascinating journeys. By the way, we're always curious to know where you're watching our lectures from. What city and time zone are you tuning in from? Let us know in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Because, you know, even your city, your street, your home, they're not just a set of coordinates. They're your personal assembly point in a vast, multi-dimensional space. Brunelleschi showed how a three-dimensional reality could fit onto a two-dimensional plane. But it was just a trick. Or, if you prefer, a hint. What if we, the inhabitants of our cozy three-dimensional world, don't even realize that our world is just someone's carefully calibrated picture? You see, we're used to thinking in three dimensions: length, width, height, up, down, left, right, forward, back. It's our default setting. Our world is the room you're sitting in. Your hand can move in any direction. Freedom. But what if that's not complete freedom? What if we're like characters from an old cartoon, drawn on a piece of paper? Imagine, you're a flat figure, living in a world with only right and left, up and down. No depth. You can walk across a table, but you can't imagine there's air above you or a floor beneath the table. Your universe is the surface of that table. For you, it's absolute reality. You might meet another figure, chat, walk around them, but you could never jump over them because jumping is an upward movement, and up doesn't exist as a dimension for you. Now imagine a finger descending onto that table, just like that, from above. For a flat creature, this would be a true catastrophe. Something absolutely inexplicable. Imagine their dialogue. Oh, great skeptic, do you see that? It just appeared. Out of nowhere. Nonsense, impossible. It must have come from somewhere. From the left? From the right? Where? But it just emerged, right in the middle of our world, and then vanished. The finger simply pierced their reality, and they had no idea of its true nature. They only saw its cross-section, a circle that suddenly appeared and then vanished, like a phantom, like a ghost that briefly manifested and then was gone. That's why we need dimensions. They're not just fancy words for physicists. They're a way to describe how vast our world is and what directions exist within it. It's like coordinates on a map, only much more complex. It's a system of roads you can travel. The more roads, the more places you can visit, the more ways there are to get from point A to point B. We're used to thinking of the world as a three-dimensional box. But what if this box is just part of a much larger structure? What if our familiar world is just one facet of a multidimensional crystal? Or, going back to Brunelleschi, what if we're living in someone's carefully rendered drawing on a panel, and someone above sees right through us? Why do we need these dimensions? To understand that our box might not be so finite after all. To peer beyond the familiar. To realize that right under our noses, right here and now, entire universes might be hidden. This isn't science fiction. It's one of science's most captivating mysteries. And today, we'll try to pull back the curtain on that mystery. Imagine the ancient city of Alexandria, around 300 BCE. The air is filled with the scent of papyrus and spices, and somewhere in the vast, majestic library, in the shadow of the columns, Euclid of Alexandria bends over a parchment. The great mathematician, the father of geometry. He isn't just drawing figures. He's trying to break down the entire world into its simplest elements. And do you know where he begins his legendary elements? He doesn't draw star charts or machine diagrams. He starts with a point. A point is that which has no part, he writes. No height, no width, no depth. Just a pure, abstract thought. And in this nothing, in this absolute minimum of existence, already lies the key to understanding all dimensions. By the way, if you're already excited to dive into these incredible worlds and expand the boundaries of your own consciousness, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That's the best way to show your appreciation. And please, tell us in the comments, what city and time zone are you watching our lectures from? We'd be very interested to know. Now, let's return to our starting point, to that very point. Think about it. A point is something so minimal that even your sharpest pencil couldn't draw it without giving it some size. This is the zero dimension. Incredible. It simply is, without direction, without movement. If you were a point, you'd have no forward or back, no up or down. You'd simply be. Physicists, of course, might smirk here, saying, "Ha, zero dimension?" That's philosophy, not physics. But it's precisely from this nothing that everything begins. It's the most basic particle of creation before it acquired any properties. Now imagine, to this solitary point, we add a single direction, simply the possibility of movement. You were a point, and now you can move left or right, forward or backward, only along one axis, only along a single line. And what do you get? A line. This is our first dimension, a linear world, a world where there's only here and there, like a train on rails, like a thread stretched through emptiness. A resident of such a world would only see two directions, forward and back. For them, there'd be no concept of turning, rising, or swerving. Only straight-line movement. If an ant crawled along such a line, it would never be able to go around an obstacle. It would simply bump into it, or, if lucky, crawl under it, but wouldn't perceive it as under or over. It would simply disappear from sight for a moment and then reappear. Its world is a single highway, with no shoulders and no horizon. Only endless movement. So what, you might ask? That's elementary, practically kindergarten. Yes, elementary. But it's on this elementary understanding, from a point to a line, from no movement to a single axis of movement, that we will build all our worlds. Because, essentially, each new dimension is simply the addition of one new possibility for movement, one new direction that opens up an entire universe. From nowhere to somewhere, that's already a huge journey. And this is just the beginning. Listen, imagine a cold, star-filled night on January 17th, 1610, Padua, Italy. A young yet already audacious Galileo Galilei presses his eye to the eyepiece of his primitive telescope. His heart pounds, his breath catches. He gazes at the moon, not as a pale disk in the sky, but at something no one before him had seen so closely. And then, bam. Instead of the expected perfect smooth sphere, he sees shadows. He sees craters. He sees mountains. The moon isn't flat, not a flawlessly round plate, as had been believed for centuries. It was three-dimensional, voluminous, and in that moment, with just one glance, the world forever ceased to be a simple two-dimensional arrangement. It was like a revelation. What seemed like a perfect drawing in the sky turned out to be a world with its own hills and valleys. And if you're intrigued by how such revelations change our perception of reality, then be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video. It really helps us create more engaging content like this. Also, we'd love to know, what city and time zone are you watching our lectures from? Tell us in the comments, we'd be interested to know. Now let's dive into a world where depth isn't even a question, but pure science fiction. Forget all the flat Earth debates. Those are just child's play compared to what we're about to discuss. Imagine yourself a resident of Flatland. Yes, imagine. You don't just see the world in two dimensions, you live in two dimensions. For you, there's no up or down, no depth, no way to go around anything except along the plane. Your world is a huge sheet of paper. You yourself are, let's say, a square or a triangle, or a circle, or maybe just a line. So imagine you're a line. You're moving along your plane, and in front of you is another line. How do you get around it? You can't. You can only wait for it to move, or move with it. And if it's a long one, an entire city made of lines. The physicists of Flatland would probably say, "What nonsense! What's this depth you speak of? It's just our length and width. What's so hard to understand?" In this world, hell and heaven exist simultaneously. Hell? Imagine, you can't hide from anyone. Your bedroom is just a drawn room, and anyone passing by sees right through you. Every resident is just a cross-section. They pass by a door and see you inside. Want privacy? Forget it. Or here's another horror. Food. How do you eat? An object appears right inside you, passes through, and then disappears. No process of ingestion, no sense of volume, just a temporary change in your own shape as a piece of food overlays you. Brrr. Conflicts. How do you resolve a dispute? Two lines collide. That's it. Movement is blocked for everyone. No one can pass. "Hey, move," you shout, but there's simply nowhere to move. It's like an eternal traffic jam with no exits. Heaven. Now this is where it gets really interesting. Imagine that into this flatland suddenly descends an object from our three-dimensional world. Say, an apple. What would the residents of Flatland see? First, a tiny point, as the apple just touches the plane with its lowest point. Then, a small circle. The circle would grow, becoming larger and larger until it reached its maximum diameter. And then it would begin to shrink, becoming a point again, and then disappearing altogether. "What was that?" the Flatlanders would exclaim. "Magic, divine intervention, a miracle. objects appearing from nowhere and disappearing into nowhere. They wouldn't understand that it's just a cross-section. It's as if you were pulling a sphere through a sheet of paper. To them, it's incomprehensible because they only see the boundaries. Imagine further. Such a three-dimensional God could, for instance, lift a Flatland resident above the plane. To the other residents, they would simply vanish and then reappear somewhere else. He flew, they would whisper. He teleported. And imagine a three-dimensional surgeon could operate from the inside. Simply reach a hand into the patient, who to us is just a cross-section, and pull out, say, a bad tumor. To Flatlanders, this is pure magic. An operation without incisions, without pain, without a trace. That's heaven. To them, we would be like omnipotent beings, capable of performing miracles. Moving them through walls, making them vanish and reappear, pulling objects out of locked rooms simply by lifting them above the ceiling. What the hell, a Flatlander would think when an apple suddenly just vanishes, and a moment later appears somewhere else entirely, having passed through a wall that to them was an insurmountable barrier. For us, it's simple. Pick up the apple, move it, put it down. For them, a violation of all laws of physics. So listen, the next time you complain about a lack of privacy or about traffic jams, remember Flatland. And consider, what if, to someone else, we, with all our three dimensions, appear just as funny and limited? What if someone looks at our world the way we look at a sheet of paper and sees right through us without even suspecting our existence? This isn't just an amusing story. It's the beginning of understanding how even a tiny dimension, invisible to us, can completely overturn the picture of reality. 2560 BCE, a hot afternoon in Giza, Egypt. Imagine, you are one of those engineers whose name history likely didn't preserve, but whose ingenious mind figured out how to build the Great Pyramid. Around you, thousands of workers, dust in the air, the shouts of foremen echoing over the sand dunes. You stand, squinting against the sun, looking at the giant silhouette yet to be brought to life. In your head, it's not just a flat blueprint. No. You see the height, the width, and that incredible, for many unfathomable depth. You mentally walk around each corner, each stone. You feel the volume, the weight. You imagine how the sunlight will glide along its facets. This isn't just a pile of stones. It's a monument in three-dimensional space, and you, a human, perceive its three-dimensionality as self-evident. While you imagine yourself as an ancient architect, I'll ask you a very modern question. If you like what we're talking about here, and you want to see more such journeys into the unexplored corners of science, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like this video. It's very important to us. And also, tell us, what city and time zone are you watching our lectures from? Let us know in the comments. We'd be interested. Now, let's get back to our three-dimensional subject. You know, what's ironic? Here we are, so clever, discussing points, lines, planes, and then, bam! We find ourselves in our cozy, familiar, three-dimensional world. And it seems so obvious, so the only possible one. Look around. There's your monitor. You see its width and height, and you know it has depth. You can pick it up, turn it, feel its volume. It's your personal sandbox, where you've been at home since birth. Height, width, depth. Three directions you can move. Forward, back, left, right, up, down. And we, humans, are perfectly adapted to life in this very world. Our eyes see in volume, our hearing determines the direction of a sound source, Our hands feel shape and texture. Our brain constantly builds a three-dimensional model of reality without which we simply couldn't exist. Try to imagine that your eyes suddenly stopped perceiving depth, and you could only move along the floor, like that Flatlander from the previous episode. Scary, right? Physicists, by the way, didn't really dwell on why. There are exactly three. They simply accepted it as a given. Euclid, the father of geometry, built his entire system on this assumption. Newton, Einstein, they all operated with three spatial dimensions. It was as natural as breathing. Come on, that's obvious, you might say. What's the catch? But the catch, my dear listener, lies in that very word, obvious. Because our obviousness is merely a function of our senses, what we can perceive. Our brain, like a very talented editor, processes a gigantic stream of information and filters out everything that doesn't fit into the familiar picture of the world. You see, it's as if you were born with 2 fingers on your hand and genuinely believed that all people should only have 2 fingers, and those with 5 you'd call mutants or wouldn't even believe they existed. So why exactly 3? Why not 4, like some aliens who can easily see through walls? Or 5, or 10, as some theories predict? Is our reality merely a convenient default setting, like the screen resolution on your computer that you've set, and it works, but someone else sees the picture much clearer, with more pixels, and therefore, with more information and detail? And that's where it gets truly interesting. What if what we consider to be all of reality is just a tiny fragment of a much more complex, multi-dimensional space? What if we, like those 2-dimensional beings from Flatland, simply don't see the 4th, 5th, or even 10th dimension because our senses aren't equipped for it? Our cozy 3-dimensional world is, without a doubt, cool. In it, you can fly planes, build skyscrapers, and play hide and seek. But have you ever considered that this might not be the whole picture? What if your world is just a very, very well-executed illusion? And if so, what lies beyond this illusion? What if we are already living in 4, 5, or even more dimensions, but simply aren't aware of it? And that, my curious friend, brings us to the next, even more fascinating question. November 1883, USA. Imagine this moment. Railway companies, tired of the chaotic schedules where every city lived by its own solar calendar, gathered and made a revolutionary decision. 4 standard time zones. In a single instant, the hands of thousands of clocks across the country were reset. People who, just yesterday, lived by their true solar time, suddenly found themselves synchronized with an invisible, unified flow. Your familiar noon suddenly became, well, let's say, 11 a.m. or 1 p.m., all because a decision was made far away to prevent train collisions. The world synchronized, but at what cost? At the cost of our naive certainty that time is something absolute, something that just flows and depends on nothing. It was the first hint, foreshadowing that time isn't as simple as it seems. By the way, if you enjoy this deep dive into the mysteries of the universe, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit the like button. It really helps us keep going, so we can make more lectures like this. And tell us in the comments, what city and time zone are you watching our lectures from? We'd be very interested to know how far our audience reaches. But let's return to our concept of time. We're used to thinking of it as something in the background, like a wide, calm river we float upon, always flowing in just one direction, from birth to death. We measure it in seconds, minutes, years, We hang clocks on the wall and think we've caught it by the tail. But what if this river isn't just a river, but one of the coordinates of a vast, unimaginable ocean through which we move? Right now, you're sitting or standing. You have a position up, down, left, right, and forward, back. 3 axes along which you can move. You can go up the stairs, turn left, or take a step forward. But what if time is a 4th such axis? What nonsense, the skeptic inside you might say. I can move up the stairs, but I can't move yesterday. I can't go back to last Monday and change something. And you'd be right, in part, because we perceive time entirely differently from space. It seems like a relentless current that waits for no one and cannot be turned back. But Albert Einstein, that brilliant prankster with wild hair, who seemed to see the world so differently from ordinary people, decided otherwise. He wasn't just joking when he said that time and space are one and the same. He showed us the gates to an entirely new world. Imagine, before Einstein, physicists saw space as a 3-dimensional box, and time as a separate stopwatch ticking alongside. But Einstein grabbed that box and that stopwatch, mixed them up, and exclaimed, "Folks, it's not a box and a stopwatch, it's a single fabric, space-time." And what does that mean for us? It means that your past, your present, and your future aren't a sequence of events that disappear into nothingness and then appear from nowhere. No, it all, in a sense, exists simultaneously. Sounds like science fiction, doesn't it? How can it be simultaneous? I feel time passing, someone might object. Imagine a film reel. Each frame on that reel is a single moment. You watch the film, and the frames flash before you, creating the illusion of movement, the illusion of time passing. But the film itself, with all its frames, with all its events, already exists. It's all there, rolled up on a reel or spread out on a table. All the frames, from beginning to end, already are. We, as viewers, simply experience them one after another, frame by frame. So Einstein and subsequent physicists hypothesize that our universe is something like such a gigantic, 4-dimensional film reel, where 3 dimensions are space, and the 4th is time. And we move along this film, perceiving it as a sequence of events. Our present is simply the frame we're on right now. This means that on this film, your dinner tomorrow already exists. Your childhood memories haven't been erased, they're simply on previous frames. Is this idea frightening? Or on the contrary, does it offer a certain philosophical peace? For us, 3-dimensional beings who are bound to a single direction of movement along this temporal axis, it's hard to grasp. We can't turn left along the time axis to go back to last Tuesday, the way we can turn left on a street. But that doesn't mean this axis doesn't exist. For some hypothetical 4-dimensional being, capable of perceiving all dimensions of space-time at once, your entire life, from birth to death, would be visible as a single, coherent object, from beginning to end, like a single long, strangely curved worm in space-time. For such a being, perhaps there would be no past or future, but simply here and there on its own, more expansive temporal axis. We move along this 4th axis without even noticing it, bound to the sensation of now. But what if this now is merely an illusion, and we are just shadows, gliding along the edge of an infinite, multi-dimensional reality? It's time to look at time not as hands on a clock face, but as another door into this incredible 4-dimensional world. October 1907, Paris. Rue Ravignan, in the legendary Bateau Lavoie studio, a tense silence reigns. Pablo Picasso presents his Les Demoiselles d'Avignon to the world, and believe me, it was not just a canvas. No more clear lines, no perfect perspectives, no single point of view. Faces are distorted, bodies broken into wild, sharp geometric fragments, seen simultaneously from multiple angles. The public is in shock, critics are horrified. "What is this savagery?" they hiss. "It's as if the painting was torn to pieces and then haphazardly put back together." Picasso wasn't just painting, he was literally breaking our three-dimensional perception, trying to show that an object could be seen not just from here, but from there, and even through it, all at once. He was as if intuitively trying to hint at something greater than just width, height, and depth. By the way, if you're also racking your brain over these dimensions, and you enjoy how we juggle complex ideas here, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. It's really important for us to know you're with us. And tell us, what city and time zone are you watching our lectures from? Let us know in the comments, we'd be interested. Let's return to Picasso. His painting is, in essence, an attempt to depict something four-dimensional on a two-dimensional surface, filtering it through our three-dimensional consciousness. Now imagine that such a painting could be our world itself for someone who sees more dimensions. We live in our cozy, familiar space, where there's up and down, left and right, forward and back. 3 dimensions. Where? Your brain screams, "That's impossible. There's no such place." But it exists. Our brain just can't imagine it. Like a fish in a 2-dimensional aquarium can't imagine above and below. This 4-dimensional cube is called a hypercube, or tesseract. And if it passed through our 3-dimensional world, like you push a finger through stretched fabric, what would we see? Remember how the 2-dimensional Flatlander saw a 3-dimensional cube? As a series of changing lines. First a point, then a small line, then a growing square, then a shrinking square, then a line again, and finally a point. The Flatlander never saw the whole cube. They only saw its cross-section. In the same way, if a hypercube passes through our 3-dimensional world, we wouldn't see it whole, but only its 3-dimensional slice. It might look like 2 cubes, one inside the other. And they constantly change size, intertwine, pulsate, rotate in a direction utterly unimaginable to us. Not just turning, but as if they're turning inside out and back again, all while remaining whole, but in constantly shifting configurations. It's not exactly a nightmare, but our brain tries to find familiar patterns and simply freezes. Imagine you're a 3-dimensional person who suddenly gained the ability to see the 4th spatial dimension. You look at your hand, and what do you see? Not just the surface. You see all the atoms, all the molecules that are inside. You see through it, as if through transparent glass. The entire interior of an object becomes accessible to you simultaneously with its exterior. You could take an apple out of a closed box without opening it, simply by moving it in the 4th dimension. To us, that's magic. For a 4-dimensional being, it's everyday life. And here's that creepy thought from the teaser. Your neighbors aren't just people, but entire traces of their lives. In the context of 4-dimensional space-time, rather than a purely spatial dimension, we would perceive a person not as here now, but as a kind of worm stretching from birth to death. This is known as a world line. A 4-dimensional being could see our entire life from beginning to end as one extended entity. It would see the whole history of our existence simultaneously. Can you touch a hypercube? No, not the way we touch an ordinary cube. We can only touch its three-dimensional projection, its shadow, which will briefly flicker in our world. But to perceive it whole, its entire four-dimensional essence, that's beyond our capabilities. Our brain is simply not equipped for such sensory information. So, hypercubes and other such mind-benders aren't just mathematical abstractions. They are objects that might exist out there, beyond our perception, forcing us to rethink the very fabric of reality. And the most interesting thing is, we're only just beginning to approach them. In the 1960s, particle accelerators began spitting out so many new, strange, elementary particles that physicists literally drowned in this zoo. Pions, kaons, lambda particles, sigma particles. The list grew with each new experiment, and every new particle was a new mystery, a new set of properties. It was utter chaos, where old models, which considered particles to be dimensionless points, were bursting at the seams. What's going on? Scientists must have wondered, scratching their heads in laboratories worldwide, from CERN to Brookhaven. How can we explain such incredible diversity if everything is supposed to be simple and elegant? Where is that fundamental simplicity we love so much? By the way, if you enjoy this deep dive into dimensions, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps us create new content. And please, tell us in the comments, what city and time zone are you watching our lectures from? We are very interested to learn our geography. Now, let's return to our mysterious particles. In this chaos, one of the boldest ideas in the history of physics was born: what if particles aren't points? Listen closely. Imagine that every fundamental particle, an electron, a photon, a quark, isn't a tiny dot, but a microscopic vibrating thread, or, if you prefer, a string. Sounds like music, right? Because it is music, just cosmic. Different vibration frequencies of these strings. These are the different particles. One frequency, an electron, another, a photon, a third, a neutrino. It's like notes on a violin. You hold one instrument, but by changing where you press your fingers and the bowing force, you extract entirely different melodies. That's why string theory is called string theory. But there's one big but that immediately makes physicists talk about fifth, sixth, seventh, and even 10th dimensions. For the mathematics of string theory to work, for it to be internally consistent and able to explain all observed phenomena, these strings must vibrate not only in our familiar 3 spatial dimensions, but also in additional, hidden dimensions. Stop, 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 the skeptic might exclaim. What hidden dimensions? We don't see them. I'm sitting here looking at my monitor, and all around me is just up, down, left, right, and forward, back. And a point. And that's where it gets really interesting. Imagine a garden hose lying on the ground. From a long distance, say, from a bird's eye view, it appears as a one-dimensional line. Just a long, thin line that only has one dimension, length. But if you get closer, get down on the ground and pick it up, you'll see that it has thickness, an entire small 2-dimensional world, curled up into a circle. An ant crawling on the surface of the hose can travel along the length of the hose, 1 dimension, and around the hose, a 2nd dimension. To it, it's a 2-dimensional surface. But for a person looking from a distance, it's a 1-dimensional line. So, these additional dimensions, which, according to some versions of string theory, could be as many as 6 or even 7, can be compactified. This means they are curled up into such tiny, microscopic, incredibly tightly coiled tubes or loops that we simply cannot detect them with our current instruments. They're there, right around us, but we don't see them, just as an ant crawling on a hose might not realize it's living not just on a line, but on the surface of a cylinder, because for it, the path around the hose is very short, and the dimensions are too small for its perception. Or imagine complex origami. A sheet of paper is two-dimensional, but as soon as you fold it, new surfaces and connections emerge that seem embedded in the original plane. So why do physicists adore this idea of extra dimensions and strings so much? First, it offers unification. String theory promises to unite all four fundamental forces of nature: gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear interactions, into a single, elegant theory of everything. It's as if you were trying to assemble a 1,000-piece puzzle, and suddenly you're given a universal frame where everything fits perfectly, and each piece also has a hologram showing where it belongs. It's the holy grail of modern physics. Second, it incorporates gravity. It's the only theory that naturally includes gravity at the quantum level, and that's the Achilles heel of the standard model of particle physics. Finally, physicists sighed, having faced the fact that their best theories couldn't reconcile Einstein's world of massive planets with the world of tiny particles. Third, it solves the problem of infinities. Imagine you're trying to describe something very small using mathematics. Sometimes the equations give you infinite values, which physicists really dislike because it usually means the theory is wrong. String theory, where particles aren't points but extended objects, naturally eliminates these infinities. It's like trying to catch water with a sieve, but strings give you a solid bucket. If string theory is correct, then our universe isn't just a collection of three-dimensional objects and the flow of time. It's much more complex. Every fundamental particle is a symphony of vibrations, and space-time itself isn't just a stage, but a dynamic, multidimensional landscape woven from these tiny, constantly vibrating threads. We are like fish swimming in a huge aquarium, unaware of the existence of air above the water because we can't touch or see it. And that air, those are the hidden dimensions where the strings of our reality vibrate. They're invisible because they're curled up, but they determine everything. Particle? No. String. Vibration? Yes. Fifth dimension? Why not? The universe is music. We only hear one note of it, and we're waiting for the entire orchestra to play at full power. October 1675. Delft, Holland. Anton van Leeuwenhoek, an ordinary draper but with an extraordinary passion for lenses, peered into his microscope. What did he see? Not just threads and fibers, but an entire microscopic zoo. Animalcules, as he called them, tiny living creatures swimming in a drop of water. For centuries, people had looked at water, but no one even suspected that a separate, invisible to the naked eye life teemed within. It was like a revelation. Our world is much more complex and layered than we're used to thinking. Listen, if you, like Anton, are curious to peek behind the curtain of familiar reality, then be sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our new journeys into the unexplored corners of the universe. And by the way, tell us in the comments, what city and time zone are you watching our lectures from? We'd be very interested to know. Now, let's return to our invisible worlds. Imagine you live in a world that seems three-dimensional to you, but in reality, right now, several other dimensions exist around you. You don't see them, don't feel them, but they are there, like those animalcules in the water, only on a much more fundamental level. What nonsense, the skeptic might say. If they exist, Why can't I walk through them? And that's an excellent question, because as physicists say, these extra dimensions, they are not just invisible, they are curled up. Imagine a garden hose. From afar, from a bird's eye view, it looks like a one-dimensional line, right? Just length. But if you get closer, you'll see that its surface is a full two-dimensional plane that an ant can crawl across. For the ant, the hose is an entire universe with length, and the circumference is width. But for the bird looking down, it's just a line. Similarly with our extra dimensions. They are so tightly curled up, compactified. As scientists say, that we simply cannot perceive them at our usual level of perception. Think of it this way. Our familiar reality is like a huge, smooth sheet of paper. And these additional dimensions are microscopic, curled-up tubes, so thin that we simply don't see them. But if they're so tiny, why do we need them at all? And this is where it gets really interesting. These hidden dimensions aren't just mathematical quirks. They could be the key to solving the universe's biggest mysteries. For instance, gravity. Why is it so weak compared to other fundamental forces, like electromagnetism? So what? Our imaginary opponent might ask again. Well, it's possible that gravity leaks into these extra dimensions. Imagine our universe is like a thin pancake, floating in a vast multidimensional ocean. And gravity, unlike other forces, isn't trapped in our pancake, but can freely wander throughout this entire multidimensional space. It's as if you were trying to catch water with a sieve. The main part of the water would stay in the bucket, but some would definitely seep through the holes. These holes, those are the extra dimensions where part of gravity escapes. That's why it seems weaker to us. This is very similar to the idea of brains. Vast multidimensional membranes on which we live. We are like specks of dust on a huge blanket, which is part of an even larger, invisible to us space. And then the question, are we living in a matrix? Takes on a whole new meaning. Our reality might be merely a projection or part of something much larger. And these additional dimensions, they are the invisible wires and schematics that support the entire system. This isn't just science fiction. These are actively developing theories in modern physics, such as string theory, Mung, and M theory, which, to be mathematically consistent, require the existence of 10 or even 11 dimensions. You understand? 10, not 3, not 4, but a full 10. So, the next time you look at a drop of water, remember Leeuwenhoek, and when you walk down the street, remember the hose. Perhaps right next to you, in microscopic, curled-up corners of space, a separate, incredible life is teeming. And who knows what secrets it hides? On February 17th, 1600, in the Campo de' Fiori Square in Rome, a pyre was burning. Not just wood and kindling, but a living man, Giordano Bruno. Around him, people probably crowded, sensing the acrid smoke and fear mixed with curiosity. Inquisitors, clad in dark robes, watched as the fire consumed the body of a man whose thoughts proved too audacious for their world. And yet, all he said was that the universe is not limited, that there exists an infinite number of other worlds, similar to our sun with its planets. Imagine, a man dies for an idea that, centuries later, becomes one of the hottest topics in modern physics. He didn't know then about quantum mechanics, inflationary models, or the many worlds interpretation, but his spirit, the spirit of endless search and conjecture, he paved the way for us, the curious explorers of today. By the way, if you also feel that same spirit of curiosity, and you enjoy how we unravel the mysteries of the universe together, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We'd be very grateful, and it helps us know we're on the right track. And one more question, before we delve deeper into parallel dimensions. What city and time zone are you watching our lectures from? Let us know in the comments. We'd be interested. Now, let's return to Bruno and his audacious idea. He wasn't just fantasizing about neighboring galaxies. He essentially laid the groundwork for the idea known today as the multiverse, the concept that our world is just one of many, possibly an infinite number. Since then, humanity hasn't abandoned this idea. Ancient myths are full of tales of other realms, worlds beneath the earth or beyond the clouds. Science fiction writers for centuries have created their own versions of parallel realities, where history might have gone completely differently, or where exact copies of ourselves exist, but with slightly different hairstyles, or where, say, you decided not to watch this video, but go for a run instead. And here's the most interesting part. This fantasy turned out to be much closer to reality than one might have thought. Modern physics, specifically quantum mechanics, has thrown us an idea so wild that even the most cynical skeptic might say, "Come on, that's just fairy tales for philosophers." But physicists aren't joking. Imagine you're standing before a choice. Take coffee or tea. You choose coffee. But what if, at that very same moment, in some other parallel universe, you chose tea? You know, it's like a choose-your-own-adventure game, but not on paper, in the very fabric of reality. Every decision, every random event, every quantum jump of a particle, all of this can be a branching point. Perhaps not just one, but hundreds, thousands, an infinite number of versions of you are reading this text right now, and each of them made a slightly different choice 10 minutes ago. A bit eerie, isn't it? This idea is called the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics. It posits that all possible outcomes of quantum events genuinely exist, but in different, constantly branching universes. The classic example is the famous Schrödinger's cat. If we don't know if it's alive or dead before measurement, then in the many worlds interpretation, it's not both alive and dead simultaneously, but alive in one universe and dead in another. Every measurement or event splits our universe into new branches. Wait, you might say, that sounds absolutely bonkers. I'd notice my doppelganger drinking tea. And that's where those extra dimensions we talked about come into play. If parallel universes exist, then they aren't located out there in ordinary space. They could be like sheets in one enormous notebook. Very, very thin sheets. Close together, but not intersecting. Or perhaps they exist in those very compact, curled-up dimensions that string theory speaks of. Maybe these dimensions aren't just hidden directions of movement, but entire roads leading to other worlds, where different laws of physics apply, where history took a different path, where dinosaurs never died out, and humans evolved from squids. Believe me, the imagination of physicists is sometimes far richer than that of any writer. For theorists, the idea of the multiverse isn't just a beautiful fairy tale. It helps solve some of the deepest mysteries. For example, why are our universe's fundamental constants, the strength of gravity, the electron's charge, perfectly suited for the emergence of life? If they were even slightly different, we wouldn't exist. It's like winning the lottery on your first try. The chances are extremely slim. But if there are billions of such lotteries, then someone is bound to win. And our universe, perhaps, is simply one of those where the winning conditions aligned perfectly. So perhaps Giordano Bruno was right. and we are just a small part of a vast, infinite multitude of realities. And who knows, perhaps beyond our perception, in neighboring curled-up dimensions, or on other branches of the quantum tree, life is teeming right now, about which we can only speculate. This opens the door not just to other worlds, but to an entirely new understanding of our place in the boundless cosmos. We've talked about space, about time as a fourth coordinate, about curled-up strings whispering their secrets in microscopic corners of existence. We've tried to imagine a hypercube, something that is simultaneously inside and outside itself. And frankly, our brain is still trying to digest that. So the question remains open. What's next? How many of these dimensions are there? Really? And will we ever be able to see everything? Today, physicists speak of 10, 11, or even 26 dimensions in various theories. 26? I can hear a skeptical gasp. You've completely lost your minds. Where are they? Excellent question. And the answer is, perhaps they are just very, very small. Curled up like a rolled-up rug, so tightly that we cannot perceive them with our large, crude senses. Imagine a taut rope. For an ant crawling along it, it's an entire one-dimensional universe. It can only move forward or backward. But for us, looking from above, the rope has both width and depth. It's three-dimensional. It's just that one of these dimensions, length, is much, much larger than the other two. Perhaps we, like those ants, are simply moving along one rope, unaware of countless other, curled-up dimensions stretching out in all directions. These curled-up dimensions could hold the key to solving the universe's biggest mysteries, from gravity to dark energy. Perhaps it's in them that the secrets are hidden as to why gravity is so weak compared to other forces, or why our universe is so finely tuned for life. Maybe gravity is just a leakage from a neighboring dimension. It's as if you were trying to catch water with a sieve, but some of it always escapes through pores invisible to you. And can we see everything? Most likely, no. Our eyes, our brain, our perception, these are tools honed for our three-dimensional reality, evolved over billions of years for survival, specifically in this world. Trying to see a fifth or seventh dimension now is like trying to listen to music by looking at color. The tools aren't compatible. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try. Every breakthrough in physics, every new theory, every discovery of the microcosm or the cosmos, that's our way of reaching beyond what's already known. It's our attempt to understand not just what kind of world we live in, but what it's truly like, with all its invisible strings, twisted spaces, and echoes from other realities. Perhaps we are those one-dimensional shadows, seen by someone who exists in a far greater number of dimensions. Or perhaps we are pioneers, about to take the next step towards a true understanding of infinity. An unending mystery, yes. But isn't that the beauty of it?